Thanks a million for coming back on. It's
Of course,
it's
dude.
great to catch up. We've obviously chatted a bit in messages and stuff, but it's great to catch up properly. You had a busy you had a busy summer, but you also had a busy like whatever year and a bit since we spoke last.
Yeah, dude.
So we'll go like backwards from now is probably the easiest way to do it. So you're in Madrid. That was like your most recent trip was Madrid.
Uh, well, I went to Power Monkey recently, so I spent a little
Oh
over a week in
yeah.
Tennessee. But man, it's been a lot of traveling. But Madrid was my most recent like far trip.
How did you find that? Was it good?
Dude, Madrid was incredible, man. It was for me. I went with multiple intentions. Now that I'm hosting the live Zelos games, it's like my approach this year has been totally different because I need to learn a lot of different things than what I learned last year hosting an
Mm.
only online competition. Anybody that's ever hosted an event knows it's a whole lot harder to host a live one than it is to host an online one. And so I went with this. I want to learn a ton. Um, you know, I know a handful of people that are involved in putting that on, and so I was able to ask some questions, get different levels of access, and then of course, um, I was friends with, I am friends with Lauren and Presley from Morning Chalk Up, so I was sort of available to help them with whatever they need. So it's sort of like I was a jack of all trades, which was amazing for me because one, I like to be busy. As much as I like to spectate, I like to serve a purpose more. And so it was nice to be able to like take notes in the event, like what am I missing? What do I need to take from this event? Granted, there was 9,000 people in attendance, like 2,000 competitors. Mine's a little different, but still, I'm like on the floor, I'm taking notes, but I'm also able to help with like data and a lot of the like competition timing and who's winning what and how, just to like share some of that information with Lauren and Presley so they can report on it right away from Morning Chalk Up. Um, and then, underdogs wise, we had Kyra there competing. Annika was there. She's a friend of the
Yeah.
family, what have you. You know what I mean? So like her and her coach.
She's a stray dog that kind of wanders in and out.
Yeah, she's straight dog. Um, so we had
In the
friends.
underdog sense, I'm not calling her ugly. I mean, like in the underdogs
Far
metaphor,
from it.
she's a stray
She'll not
dog.
tell
Yeah,
her
yeah.
that. So like I served a handful of purposes, and I was able to learn a ton, and so that was incredible. And then obviously like the relationships like the Jukic brothers, I'm acquainted. I wouldn't call these my friends, right? Like I don't go hang out with these guys, but I've had them on the podcast. I talked to Luca and Lazar a good bit, like through Instagram. So it's cool being able to like, say what's up to these guys, spend a couple of minutes with them in between events. And so just being able to get with, because it's the largest European event like in the world, I think.
Mm.
And so, what was really cool about it to me is that the games is amazing, Wadapalooza is amazing, Rogue is amazing. These are some really cool events, but this is the most diverse event I've ever been to. Like you've got people from all over the world at Madrid CrossFit Championship. So that was cool to me. Um, I liken it to, I'm a Christian. So when I'm there, I'm like, this is probably what heaven's going to be like. You know what I mean? It's like so diverse, like people from every country, all, all colors, all people, all genders. It was just amazing for me to be there and witness it and learn a ton. Long story short.
You were in Italy before that, then, weren't you?
No,
Like
I
for a
didn't go to
wedding,
Italy.
or were you
I
not
didn't go
somewhere
to
for a
Italy.
wedding or somewhere in
I was in
Europe?
France. Yeah.
Oh,
So like
France.
I went to France for a week right before the week of the games. And
Okay.
so that was a lot. But I couldn't miss either one for the world, right? Like,
Yeah.
so one of my best friends is getting married in France. He was born and raised there. Um, he came to St. Augustine, Florida, went for college, and that's where we met because I'm from Jacksonville Beach. And so, good friend of mine, I went to France for a week. I flew back to Vegas for like 8 hours and then flew to Madison,
And then died.
um, which was like nerve wracking because I almost missed my flight in Zurich, not because of me, but because like they didn't have a seat for me. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that
Airlines lately are
shit
tripping.
always happens. It's fucking ridiculous.
I had to like sit in the very back seat. Like it was weird, but
You
I'm
were
like,
like sitting on top of the drinks trolley.
yeah, I'm like, get me home. It was like a 14-hour flight from Zurich to Vegas, but man, I got here, I took a nap, I packed up, went to Madison, and had a good old time at the games.
uh, you've also taken on some extra roles. So, like, say the last time we spoke, you had, I think, I don't think the podcast was happening then. Um, it might have been like germinating, but I don't think it had happened. I don't think.
I don't
And
think so.
yeah, and like the Zelos Games was like uh gathering pace and was gonna, like you had ideas what it's gonna be like, and it was like, it was ambitious and like, broad, that kind of, you're talking about diverse, I guess. And you had your intentions behind it of why you wanted to do it, all that kind of stuff. Um, Now we're like whatever, 12 months on, a little bit more. Now you're in athlete management, you're working with underdogs, you've got an in-person competition coming up, you've got a podcast, you've got like, apparel that goes with the competition and stuff as well. Um, how much of this was like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that, and how much of it was, just sort of happened, just like developed into what it was? Like how much of this was intention and how much of it was like, circumstance or happenstance?
All of it is both. So what I mean by that is like if you were to create like a pie graph of how these things came to fruition, like I'm very intentional about my ambitions and like the long term of what I want to accomplish,
Mm.
and then sort of like reverse engineering that and sort of like strategizing in the short term. What does that look like for me and my daily habits, my relationships, and my work? And so, you know, last time like last March, I sold that last company and I took that road trip and I started the Zelos Games. And that was like my first step back into like professional world, right? Had taken some time off. Now, granted, I have like my consulting agency that I've ran for years now, but that's very much I don't market myself as a consultant. That's super organic. So throughout the year, it doesn't bog me down. So long story short, I started the Zelos Games, and through the Zelos Games, created all these relationships that were organic but symbiotic for to host this competition and to be successful in that. And so, of course, I got acquainted with Cooper and Jason from Lab Management, and it's ironic because as a kid, I saw Jerry Maguire and thought I want to be a sports agent, and then I was discouraged because I found out you needed a law degree, and like I grew up with very little means, like going that would be self funded for me, and the circumstances of my life and my teenage years just didn't allow me to pursue a law degree.
Yeah,
Long story short,
we've covered that in the last
so
episode. If you want to hear about that story, you can go back to the last episode.
yeah, it's a little tough back then. So I sort of gave up like my sports agency goals, right? And so, long story short, Cooper and Jason were like pivotal in helping me put the first Zelos Games on, um, and sort of brought me under their wing and introduced me to a lot of important people in order to be successful in hosting an event like this. And in that, may have been Justin or Jason or Cooper that was like, Jared, I think you'd be good at athlete management. It's something you should consider. And obviously, that's flattering. I was overwhelmed with Zelos Games at the time, so when it was first presented to me, it's like I think that would be really cool too. I also think I could do pretty well. I just don't know that I want to stamp myself as like a full-time athlete manager because I'm so entrepreneurial, like to a fault, as you can tell. You know what I mean? Like, so after the Zelos Games, Ariel won the overall competition on the female side. Her and I have some shared values. I really loved just like working with her, the communication process of like sharing some of the content that she did, getting her paid. And I did post competition interviews with everybody that was willing to chat with me. And so her and I just got along really, really well. And she was one of the only athletes that like won top three, top five, or whatever that didn't have representation. And so I sort of was like, Ariel, you should get someone an agent. And so she was like, I'll think about that. I've never thought about that. She reaches out to Lab, and then Lab says, Jared, like Ariel just hit us up and said that you inspired her to hit us up. Like, why don't you work with Ariel? And I was like, I would love to do that because it's not like I didn't want to get into athlete management for the sake of being an athlete manager. I wanted it to be something that I was like inspired to do. And so when it was sort of like full circle, Ariel wants a manager, and I really like Ariel as a person and an athlete. She didn't have a manager or any paid sponsors, but she's a CrossFit Games athlete, fittest American mom. It was like, this is an opportunity for me to help someone to learn the ropes and not to be committed full time. I will do that. And so it just, so part organic, but part like I've been preparing my whole life for a role like this with all the things that I had done in preparation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's that. And then like same thing kind of with the underdogs thing. I had met Justin in Vegas on my road trip, shared with him the Zelos Games idea. He loved it. Ran into him again at the games. We reconnected and he helped me program one of the workouts, and then we stayed in touch. And I'm a self-proclaimed underdog. Like if you look at the story of my life, um, I would say that I'm an underdog, like through and through. And so just sort of attracted to the brand. Obviously, a name is a name, but if you get to know people, you you learn to love the brand. And so like me and Justin got along really well. And Underdogs is at a very early stage of business, and this is something that I thrive in, is like startup world. And so again, relatively organic. It was one of those things I suggested, like, Justin, I think to get to the next level, you guys should bring on like a business person, right? Because they've got some of the best coaches in the industry, some of the best athletes, but there wasn't like a business person, sort of strategizing and delegating and all the behind the scenes stuff that isn't super sexy. And so I was like, well, I'm a free agent technically, and I'd love to help. And so we sort of just came together and found a way to make it work. I came to Vegas and started working with Underdogs. Um, then the podcast was like, I do like podcasting. I wouldn't say that I'm the best at interviewing. I think if when I go back and watch mine, I'm more boring than most people. So I am rethinking like doing podcasts and stuff. I guess I'm less controversial too, which is like that's exciting for podcasts to be controversial. But anyways, the point of it was twofold. Like I want to keep Zelos Games relevant in the off season, like our off season. And then two, I didn't feel like there was like a podcast specifically designed for extrapolating on the life stories of these athletes. And I could be wrong. Like, I'm very interested in people's life stories. So I figured like who wouldn't want to know the first workout Sam Briggs did? You know what I mean? Or like who wouldn't, you know what I mean? So I was like, I know a handful of these athletes. We see if they want to jump on a podcast, and then we kick the podcast off. And as you know, like uh former friend of mine inspired me to do it because he's like, I'll help you. I'll produce the podcast. All you got to do is get him on the camera. And I'm like, oh, that's easy for me. And so we partnered up and launched the podcast. And so they all sort of not entirely organically, because I don't consider myself to be a lucky person, but I'm always putting in work. And these were like the organic results of that work. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Well, what's that? The harder you work, the luckier you get. Isn't that
Yeah. Yeah.
the phrase, the old adage? Um, what's athlete management like? Is that like so? Say, like by and large, is it just Ariel that you work with there doing that?
It was for the past year. And like it's not, it wasn't that I didn't have other opportunities to work with different people. I
I
didn't
mean,
dive
you've
into
probably
athlete
got enough
management as
plates spinning, to be fair,
yeah, it
without
was like
taking on like 10 athletes.
not that I'm like too good for other people or any of the athletes that hit me up over the past year. It was like one, I'm really focused on getting Ariel what she needs. Like this is like she's a person, so don't get this wrong, but like it was a case study for me to see, am I good at this? Like,
Yeah.
is this something I should consider doing for other people? And I'm confident in saying that I think we've done a really great job. I mean, Ariel is who she is, so she makes it easy for me. Um, but like I would say over this past year, I've convinced myself like, hey, I think I'm pretty good at this management thing.
Mm.
And so because of that, now I've actually brought on a couple more people. So um, uh, two more people in particular. Girl named Kate Van Ziel, who is
Oh, that's
you're probably
the Australian girl, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kate's awesome, and she sort of like popped up on my radar because Justin started coaching her. Again, it wasn't something where I was like, I'm gonna represent more people. Let me go out and start like pitching. It was like, who? Okay, now that I want to do this a little bit more, let's see what happens. And then Justin signed on Kate as an athlete, and then she DM'd me and was like, hey, how does this work? I see you work in athlete management. And I was like, as a matter of fact, let's jump on a call because it's something I'm interested in doing more.
Step into my office.
Yeah. And so yeah, we literally like over the past week did onboarding, and I'm beginning to kind of figure out where she best fits in the marketplace as like an Australian former teams going indie. It's a really unique thing to do, but Yeah, and then a girl named Riley Beebe, who I'm super excited about. She won second place in the 14 to 15 division last year. Um, she is a stud. Like most recently, if you look at her Instagram, she overhead squats 200 pounds 3 times. And it's
Fuck's sake.
I know, bro. Like, she turns 16 next year, like mid next year, and just like a lot of potential. But again, I met her and her dad in Madison at the gym. She was training. I was training. I don't remember how me and Ben like shook hands, but I'm a relatively social person, so we chatted for a sec. He was like, "Yeah, that's my daughter." I'm like, "Well, she looks like she's competing, but I know she's not elite. She must be a teenager." He's like, "Yeah, 14 to 15, blah blah." She got second place. She got 15th last year. So I was like, "That's so incredible, man! Like, you should be proud." And we became friends, followed each other on Instagram. Long story short, we reconnected, and really in the past couple of weeks started working together. So super excited about that too. Totally different. Like, I've got this, established
Oh, you've got the
position.
three. You've got the three generations. You've got the mom, the someone moving into individual, and a teenager. You've got it all
Yeah.
covered.
And so it's yeah, I hope that answers your question. Did you ask me how it works? Is that what you said?
No, I'm just curious of what it's like because it's like, so say if you're representing someone, I suppose well, we say when you just had Ariel, and she was like just wildly underrepresented, with like it was just like criminal how little like spotlight she got and how little like, I don't know, like brand appreciation and stuff or opportunities or whatever. Or maybe she was getting them but didn't know how to accept them or whatever. But um when you're working with her or any athlete, is it like seasonal? Like, I'm curious about, say, you obviously don't want your athlete to just their Instagram bio just to be like do, 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 just like sponsor, 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 sponsor. You don't want that. So you obviously want like a couple of headliners of like they will make it possible for you to be like a professional athlete, as in like as close as you can be in this sport until it gets more professionalized, I guess. Um, and then is it like that you try your best to find the best match, as in like say Ariel with RPM, like, I've had the guys from RPM on, they're great, their company is great, their mission statement is great, like how they do it, their attitudes, everything is great. Perfect matchup with Ariel. So it's kind of a no-brainer when that happens or when that becomes likely to occur, I guess. Um, but then obviously, presumably that's like, okay, 12 months. So then do you just like relax? Do you know what I mean? It's like how, like, what do you
You
do
chill?
in
Yeah.
the intermeeting time? Are you like, well, what if that doesn't work out in 12 months' time? I need to have some other iron on the fire, or what if like blah blah blah, or what if they drop her? What if they go out of business? Like that kind of stuff. Or like, what do you do after you sign a contract with someone? You always have to get content out, and you have to make sure that she's holding up her end of the bargain and stuff. And you might have to go back and forth, like she did this thing and you didn't do this thing, or you did this thing and she hasn't done this yet. I'll chase up that. But like, is there just like kind of dead time in
Um,
between?
so yes and no. And of course, I'll respond like with my limited understanding. I know like
Yeah, yeah,
you,
yeah. Other
you do
people would
most
be
of that
like, "What?"
yeah, like I don't want to pretend to know it all and like Bijan or Snorri or Coop
Yeah,
or Jason will keep watching like who does this guy think he is? You know what I mean? But no, I have a process, and so like from day one, it's like with Ariel or whether it was Riley or Kate, we do onboarding. We just go through like a list of like what's your favorite shoe, second favorite, third favorite, fourth favorite, because we may not get your first favorite, right?
yeah, yeah,
But what do you genuinely like to wear? I go through a gamut of like, there's so many products in the CrossFit space, and there's so many products outside of CrossFit that I think as managers, it's our responsibility to like beat those doors down to get the Kodiak cakes to sponsor a CrossFit athlete, so we can start getting these bigger brands into, you know what I mean? It's like whoever that
yeah,
was the first person to get Monster to sponsor a CrossFit athlete is like they're doing what we need to be doing, because if we're all chasing down the same CrossFit brand for some cash, the CrossFit brand's going to run out of cash. We need to get these anyways, that's, I digress there. But so I just go through an onboarding thing. And then from there, I identify personally like what I think is the best product market athlete fit, right? So with Ariel being Fittest American Mom, what are some of the brands that like clearly value being American made, or they clearly target parents or moms, etc. So kind of like look at that, right? Like First Form, for example, has a multivitamin for kids, but First Form is also a very reputable elite athlete brand. So like for Ariel, who just started working with First Form, that was ideal for me. Oh, and for her, more importantly. Um, so, so that's kind of my thought process around trying to establish these relationships. But once they get signed and on the dotted line, do we take a break? Sure, but that doesn't mean I'm done, because if I just got her a supplement company, we're good for a year or 2 or 3, however long that contract is there. But I still have to make sure if she has deliverables at an event, like those are being met. I mean, Ariel is probably an outlier in that I mean, she's an MBA, like she's a mom, a wife, like she's very well organized, like she keeps track of all of her stuff really well. I'm not having to like chase her down, but I still, I mean, from time to time, I'm reviewing the contract. I review all these contracts monthly to make sure we're hitting the deliverables. If anything's coming up, that we are proactive about it, because I don't want to lose one or like have a bad leave a
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
taste in someone's mouth. So that is part of the work. Granted, that's relatively easy, like regular check-ins. But just because we got her a supplement company doesn't mean she's fully taken care of, right? So like now it's time to revisit shoes, or um like her apparel's fine. Okay, we don't need to look at that, but like we got to renew these sunglass deal, or look at so there's always work to be done, but there are ebbs and flows to it, to answer your question. Like when I first brought it on, I'm hitting the ground running. Like with Riley and Kate right now, like I'm working harder over the next couple of weeks, maybe a couple months, than I will once I get them 2, 3, 4, 5 deals, because then it's like more maintenance.
Do you
um
struggle with that? Because I know I struggle with that, where you have an idea and you start working on it, and there's that buzz of like, oh fuck, this is amazing. Even if it ends up being absolute dog shit, there's that thing at the start where you're like, this is the best thing ever, and I've got so much energy for it. And you start doing stuff, and then like I see people, like say Rad, I see them like teasing a shoe like 3 weeks before it's launched, and I'm like, "How do you hold on to it? Like, how do you hold back the picture of the shoe that you know you have, that you know people are gonna like?" Like, anytime I get someone like if I have someone coming up, I'm like, "Oh, I just wanna release the episode now because I have it recorded. Why can't I just" like, I recorded an episode with, like, Travis Mayer a couple of weeks ago, and it's out, like, next week, but I was just like, "Fuck it, just release it on a Sunday. Who gives a shit?" Like, I can't
yeah.
hold back stuff, and then, like, when it's done, like, when I have it finished, that thing finished, I'm itching for like the next thing, or I'm like, oh, like I need everyone to see it straight away. I need to just get it out and get some feedback on it, or I need to like. Is it hard for you if you're always got like your fingers in so many pies? That always sounds like a horrible sentence. I don't
Yeah,
know
that was
why.
weird.
If you've always got loads of irons in the fire,
There you go.
and then some of those irons are just kind of cooling beside the fire and they don't need to be in there. Do you like, is it hard for you to just sit still with like, that's done now, and then just
No,
like
no.
not do anything with it?
No, but that's because I always have, and this isn't like a brag, it's just how my life works, but like I always have so many irons in the fire. I always have so many
Yeah.
burners on. You know
So
what I
many
mean?
fingers and pies. So many fingers and so many pies.
I'm not anyways. Yeah, so like I have like my whiteboard in front of me right now is like all my priorities, right? Like Underdogs Athletics, E3, which is my consulting agency, the Zelos Games, and then of course like athlete management. These are like top priorities. And then of course, like I have a couple personal influencer style deals, that those are like I have deliverables there. And then I have like my travel schedule. So it's like once one thing gets checked off the list, man, it's a breath of fresh air. But I know that I have like 100 more things to check off the
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Like I can already tell you the day that the Zelos Games is over, like like I'm day one on a new thing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like I want to relaunch the journal I created, and possibly like reposition the book I published last year as like a relaunch, going into this. So it's like I already know, like once this is over, like this is holding me back, if anything, from the next thing I want to do. You know what I mean? Um, sleeping at night is probably the hardest part. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like my mind's always racing.
Um, what was the response like to Zalos last year? Like, were you happy with how people reacted to it? Were you happy with the feedback you got?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there's I think like 7 or 8 things that I identified personally as like success markers for the Zelos Games first year. Some of those are really pragmatic, like financial success, brand visibility, and then like the programming. Did the athletes enjoy the programming? Did it make sense? Was it a good test? And then the show, like who showed up, and then also like was the leaderboard diverse, right? Because I created this to be a global online competition for athletes to earn money no matter where they're from. And so like was the leaderboard diverse? And so there were success markers. Leaderboard super diverse. Very proud of that. Um, Athletes got paid within a week after the competition. Very proud of that. Um, and so brand visibility, proud of that. And I was able to do like post competition interviews, I guess, with some of the athletes and got a bunch of great feedback. And then I got some uh, constructive criticism as well, which is okay. I didn't take it personally. It's my first time hosting a online, like a very unique thing. It's not like I came into this with a bunch of pride. Um, and so everything I learned, we changed, right? Like last year was $20 to sign up for one workout instead of just do the whole thing. I was trying to be different. It
Mm.
didn't work, right? So like it was stupid. And so we didn't do that this year. Now it's flat, like anywhere from 39 to $69 to sign up for all 4 workouts. And I learned a bunch. Like if somebody just does one workout, it messes up the leaderboard, right? So like I learned a ton.
Yeah.
3 weeks for 4 workouts. That's a really long time. I'm not the open. So okay, 10 days this year for 4 workouts. So just there was things that like I casted a really broad net last year. We had a scaled division, and like if you enter the scaled division, it enters you into a raffle. I thought, okay, these people like to work out, but they may not think they'll win. So just by competing, they'll win a raffle. That sounds like a genius idea. It wasn't apparently because not many people signed up. It was a big loss for me. So it's like, okay, no scaled raffle this year. We have 10 divisions. We have the elite, and then there's a pre-qualifier to it. Top 500 in the worldwide quarterfinals. So we're helping to build a little more value into the CrossFit Games season programming. But we're
Mm.
also leveraging that as like a clear qualifier to where like elite people can't just do the RX and sandbag and win some prizes. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I learned a ton. Uh, Overall, very happy with it. I mean, to be transparent, I say I lost a bunch of money, but in reality, I invested a ton of money in it. I didn't plan on losing money last year, but who does? You know, like
Yeah.
um, but I didn't know that Wadapalooza qualifiers would be the same week. So last year, the Zelos Games kicked off on October 4th. Wadapalooza qualifiers kicked off on October 4th. I couldn't have planned for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, so this year, I was on in touch with Dylan at the beginning of the year. Like, yo, when it's cool, can you tell me when Wadapalooza is happening so I can push it back? And so we pushed it to November. And so certainly learned a lot last year. Overall, very happy. Like at the end of the day, I started it not for myself, and not necessarily for profits, but for 2 reasons. One, to increase earning potential for athletes all over the world, and entertainment for fans. Um, we did really good at the first part, not awesome at the second, because to create entertainment is an expensive venture. We repurposed a lot of the videos on YouTube, and that was fun, and hit the mark a little bit. But this year, that's why we're hosting the live event. Um, and in addition to obviously having the online competition where the majority of the prize money is allocated to.
Is that in Camp Rhino, the online or the in person?
Yeah, so the in-person event is like, again, this year it was like, how do I do it differently? If I do it at all, I wasn't really sure if I was going to do it again because like hosting an event is not easy and it's very expensive. It's a huge financial risk. Like it's very unlike any other business I've ever built or ran where it's like cash in, cash out, bring cash in, build it bigger. So on. This is like one huge leap of faith, like, and then hoping that everyone shows up. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
buying 5 cakes for a party where you don't know if 300 people are coming or not. Like, anyways, I don't know if it's the best analogy, but so yes,
No, it's
the
fine.
event.
I'm honestly, I'm trying to think like how many pints are in a keg and how many people. Like, is he saying that there's 300 people who are going to get absolutely shit faced, or is everyone just going to sip on a glass of beer each and it's fine? Like, I'm trying to
Oh no, I
gauge, is
mean
that
there's
part of
five
your rager
kegs.
or is it okay?
I think a keg's like 100 beers, probably.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. So people are getting shit faced.
yeah, so like 300 people, 6 kegs should be pretty good. I think. Like we used to usually have 1 or 2 kegs at like a house party of 50, 60 people.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, and usually the goal was like girls drink free, guys pay a couple bucks. And out of pride, guys would typically just bring their own stuff. We would usually have some, you know. So I root my early stage event organizing credit to all the
In
parties I
trying to get girls to parties. That was
You see, here was the like unspoken rule about hosting parties back in the day that nobody really knew. Like when we were in college, like I threw really good parties because here's the trick, and this was when Facebook was the thing. Instagram wasn't even really a thing back then. You invite only girls. Like, don't even invite your homies. Like, invite like one or two of your guy friends, because every other dude's gonna find out.
Hmm.
But if you invite 30 guys and 30 girls, you're gonna have 15 girls and 60 guys at your party. So the trick is invite 60 girls and 15 guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then your party ends up being 30 girls and 30 guys.
Yeah.
So like, because dude, every weekend guys are just worried, what are girls doing this weekend? So if you
Yeah.
invite 60 girls and half of them decide to come, it's gonna get leaked out. You tell 30 guys, man, it's gonna be what we called a sausage fest back then.
Yeah.
So a little bit of everyone wants to throw a party in the near future.
Yeah.
Any Steamboat people want to throw
Little
a
bit of
party.
absolutely fucking useless information for a dad of two who's married. Yeah, just like worthless. But somebody
Yeah, I
listening
mean,
might
tell
be
me
like,
about it. Like,
yeah,
shoot, I'm not married, don't have kids, but I work way too much to even try to enjoy a party. But
yeah.
we do have an after party after the Zelos games at the Marquee, which I
Wow,
think is at
that was fucking professional. You really brought it back. You brought it back to topic. That's impressive. I was As we were talking about that party thing, I was like, how the fuck am I going to get this back on track? But wow,
Don't worry, man.
you
I'm
just
like,
spun
I'll
it
always
round.
reel it in.
Yeah.
No, if you attend the Zelos games and you get a wristband, you get free entry to the Marquee. Girls drink free at the Marquee for the after party. So
Bringing your college intel to real life. Yeah. Girls go free. Guys, you got to pay double because the girls are
yep.
going free.
Sorry, guys.
Um, Okay, so the planning then for you kind of say that you weren't sure, that you kind of took a hit, and it's obviously not enjoyable to that. And I know it's not the be all and end all, but obviously you're like nobody wants to be like, I'm going to put on this event every year and dig myself a hole I can never get out of because I'm so insistent on putting it on every year. Like you want to break even and eventually like make a living, and like that's the aim, regardless
Yeah.
of if people talk about it or not.
100%.
So last year you had different training camps for programming different workouts. Like Underdogs did one, Mayhem did one, and that was kind of I'm sure that was one of your like this is different kind of things that you're thinking of, and that you talked about earlier on. Is that happening this year, or who's programming it this year?
No, this year I took a different approach. I mean, to really simplify the process because I didn't want to overcomplicate. Like, there's so many things that go into even the online event now. There's 10 divisions, but also like especially the live one. I didn't want to overcomplicate the programming part, and I also didn't. So, long story short, Kiefer, who's the assistant head coach at Underdogs Athletics, is like my lead programmer, right? So I created like a framework. Like I know I want 4 workouts. I want these stimuli,
Yeah, yeah,
these time domains, these equipment preferences, um, and then build something from it. And so he did, and then we critiqued it together. So he took the largest, bulk of that, and then we have like a collective group of a few people, Brian Friend, Andrew Hiller, who I've shared, like early on shared the programming with to get like, it's like, hey guys, pick this apart for me. Um, and so we have had some help, but primarily the credit goes to Kiefer.
yeah,
Um, and, I thought a lot about that. I haven't actually talked with Justin about this specifically. Um, but I didn't want it to be an underdog because because I work here. I don't
yeah,
want the
yeah,
world to think that this is like a biased underdogs thing and that to scare other people away. And that might just be me being insecure. So that's kind of why I didn't strategically make this a like an underdogs programmed this workout thing.
yeah,
Because it is an online event. A lot of things can happen with an online event. I think it would be a lot different than like, for example, HWPO programming like the Can West games. Like it's not like HWPO all showed up to that, like all their, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
an open, so that's kind of why I did it the way that I did it, knowing that I work for Underdogs, because that might have been a question of yours or something like that. Um, Plus, Justin has a lot on his plate with all the people he coaches and programs for. So really didn't want to bog him down with like pulling him to do this. So and it was nice to be able to get Kiefer involved because Kiefer is this up and coming. I mean, he's already like here. He's not up and coming technically, but like I think Kiefer deserves a seat at the table. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
And by getting him involved, I feel like that could help. Not that he needs my help, but you know what I'm saying.
Is so like say last week or maybe it was the week before you there was a an announcement or whatever that Hiller was involved as head judge and that um is that is that involvement I'm playing devil's advocate. So I always give people the benefit of the doubt. So I'm assuming you involved him because he's fucking good at what he does and he knows his shit. And like I've had him on the show and he's a pleasure to talk to and he's really fucking passionate and he cares um, but is involving him also easing the stress of like, oh, he could make a video talking shit about this like the week it's on or the week after it's on. But if he's involved, he's not going to do that because he's got an vested interest in it.
Am I paying Hiller off? Is that what you're saying? No, it's twofold. It really is. It all comes down to strategy. I'm a pragmatist, like to a fault, and so like this wasn't my idea originally. I honestly don't remember whose idea it was. I mean, so many people have contributed ideas to what we're building here, but it's twofold, right? I do believe in the world of CrossFit, Hiller has proven himself to be like the best video analyst probably
Yeah,
on in the scene. And this is largely a video. This is an online competition where we have to review a ton of videos. So I was like, why not bring on the best person for that? So that was one of the reasons and the main reason. The second thing is, okay, well, if I bring him on, this serves a purpose for him too, because a lot of the CrossFit audience is echoing this sentiment of like, put your money where your mouth is, especially people like at HQ
yeah,
that work at seminar, that judge events. It's like, you've never done this, Hiller. Why don't you do this? And so this gives him an opportunity to step up to that plate, and he was more than happy to do that. He wasn't hesitant, like, oh crap, here's my chance. Let me cower away. He was like, oh shoot, like this is a good point, and I've been wanting to do this. So like when I presented it to him, it was like, hey, dude, you're the best video analyst in the space, and I could really use your help. But also, this is an opportunity for you to judge the live event and prove to people like you've got what it takes to do the work here live.
yeah,
And then thirdly, like you said, and like I don't mind saying this publicly, if he's doing it for me, he won't be doing it against me. You know what I'm saying? And what I
yeah,
said to Hiller is like, yo, because it's like this is an event. I'm not like paying him what he's worth in short. You know what I mean? Like to do this work. But it was like, Hiller, you're gonna watch all these videos anyways, and you're gonna tear them apart either way. Why
yeah,
not do that on the inside and help? Because you're gonna do it no matter what. And he was like, that's true. And I'm like, so let's do it from the inside. Let's penalize them privately, and then I could just call it a day. Like, let's do it
yeah.
professionally. You know what I mean? Um, so it
No, it's
worked out.
smart.
I
It
think it
is
worked out.
smart. It is smart. Um, you announced the standards and the penalties against the standards, which I don't think I've ever seen done anywhere other than like sometimes they'll say like this is a rep, this isn't a rep on a video or whatever, but or they might in the text say like the athlete must, and they'll have their little text or whatever. Um, announcing the penalties and stuff, is that just because of say like the frustration that generally happens where it's like kind of vague and it's like, oh, we'll work out a time penalty based off how much of an advantage you gained or lost or whatever? Is that just to kind of eradicate any confusion, frustration, annoyance, problems like arguments on the day and that kind of stuff?
Um, the original intention doesn't have anything to do with like what's been going on. We're doing it because it makes the most sense. Like we're doing it because we don't know why it's not being done. I am a little weary, right, of like doing this and then finding out on the back end, like, oh, this is why CrossFit doesn't do it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
hopefully that like revelation doesn't happen. But even as a group, and it's like I'm empathetic to the fact that I have not been around for 15 years. There are people at CrossFit HQ that are putting together the content for the open rules, quarterfinals, semifinals, etc., that have been around way longer than me. But it still begs the question: why don't we transparently communicate penalties in advance? Because, for example, and like this, I'm not casting shade. This is a but the bike to work event. It's like why didn't we say someone in the room is like, "Hey, playing devil's advocate, what if someone skips a lap?" And then they have a brief discussion of like, "Oh, it's a 7-minute penalty if they do." And then when it happens, they're like, "Everyone, we planned for this. It's a 7-minute penalty." Instead of having a corral afterwards and being like, "Holy crap, someone skipped a lap. What are we gonna do?" And then they all like put their best minds together and they're like, "Slowest lap." Like, why wasn't that done before? Um,
Yeah.
and so again, like I am empathetic to the fact that they're doing the hard work. So I try not to be critical of people that are like in the arena. But for us, it's like, why shouldn't we do this? Why not explain the penalties in advance? So then, like you said, yes, we can avoid kickback on the back end, but we're not really doing it to avoid frustration. We're doing it because it just makes the most sense. Like we already
Well,
have an
it
idea.
makes the judge's job way easier, and it makes the head judge's job easier because it's like, "We told you." Like, "We
Yeah,
told you what would happen if you didn't do the burpee properly," or, "We told you what would happen if this, that, and the other." And the athletes know going in. Now, like, there is that kind of thing of like, will there be gaming where it's like, it's probably worth my like going by where I am in this workout. It's probably worth my while to fuck that rep up and just deal with the time rather than do this, this, and this. Do you know what I mean? Which that
yeah,
also makes it kind of interesting though, where you're kind of like, would people think that way? Would people like? I remember hearing Fraser talk about you go to your judge and you see where is the exact line that I have to get to, and then I'll literally just go to that line. So I think it adds an element of intrigue to it. Is it going to be live streamed, the in person?
yes. So Savon has the broadcast rights to the competition. So he's sending a small team out. Susan will be out. Brian Friend is like the live analyst. Um, so there will be. I think we're doing it pretty strappy or scrappy. Um, I think Savon's. I've got like a small team of people here on the ground that'll be working with him. He'll probably have like 5 people literally with iPhones. I believe they did it at the Dubai CrossFit Championship a couple years ago.
Yeah,
Um,
they more or
and
less did it at Wadapalooza as well, like last year.
yeah, so it's like we're that's what they're gonna do, but we've had months to plan for it, so it should be like a better production than than super scrappy. Like
Yeah,
Savan will be at home like you are right now behind he'll be talking with Brian live. There will be like sponsor placements at the bottom. We will have like he'll have all the workouts and all the information. So it'll be as like professional as we can make it. But it's fun because again, it's like you've got Savan who is very outspoken about how certain workouts should be broadcasted. Um, Whole field of play, etc. Now, granted, again, I have an advantage. We only have 4 people competing at a time, so it's not like 40 people in a lane.
yeah,
But it's like, hey, Savan, you talk a lot about how things should be done, and I didn't approach him about this. I actually approached him very like humbly, like, hey, I would love for you to do this. Can you do this? But it was like, hey, you do talk a lot about how these things could be done better. This is an opportunity to like kind of do it. Um, so let's do that. Like, tell me what you think would be a cool way to do this, and I'm open minded to it. So it's really cool. I think the Zelos Games is this like uh, unique project, and it's like it's built as a another leg under the table of the whole CrossFit season. Like it's intended to be supportive of the CrossFit season. It's not supposed to be like different to be different or combative or anything like that. But it is cool that we get to try some new things, like announcing penalties in advance, like giving Hiller an opportunity, like Savan broadcasting it. We're introducing challenges for the live competition. So you're familiar with like the challenge flag in NFL football, for example, right?
okay,
So like there's been this discussion lately over like should judges count reps or should athletes count reps? Who gets the ultimate say, etc. And it's nobody seems to know the answer. And so At our event, judges will be responsible for counting reps, as I believe they should. Um, but if an athlete gets a no rep that they think is unfair, they get one challenge a day. And at our competition, there's 2 workouts on Saturday, 2 workouts on Sunday. So before they leave the competition floor, they can't come back hours later. Let's say, for example, the workout is 100 burpees and 100 pull-ups, something like that. If 2 of the burpees in a row, the judge is like, no rep, no rep. And the athlete's like, what? Like my chest, my thighs touch the ground. And they just keep going. They end up doing obviously 102 because of those no reps. They finish the workout and then they got to sign the thing and they say, I'm challenging this. And so we're going to ask, okay, at what point during the workout are you challenging? Hopefully they know, oh, it was a second round of 10 or something like that. We can go back and Andrew's going to have, like, he's going to have his own iPad, like on the floor over the whole competition, filming the workout. And that's like our review. So we're going to look at that. And so we see, oh, the judge is wrong. You get these 2 credited back to you, and you'll have X amount of seconds credited back. So this is your new score. But it also can work against the athlete, just like in the NFL. So if they challenge it and we notice, well, no, those were 2 no reps. We actually have 2 more. You're going to be penalized. Um,
What happens if they challenge it and nothing, like, as in if the judge was right, but the athlete wasn't more wrong than they thought they were? Do you know what I mean? What if it's like, is it just like, no, that's your score, finished? Or is it like, no, now you're penalized for challenging and being wrong? No.
they lose the challenge. That's really
Okay,
it. It's
yeah.
like just like in NFL, you have to be very strategic with your challenge. You have to be very confident. Like, because I think you get, I should know. I'm a friggin' football fan. I think you got like 3 challenges in a whole game or something like that. Um, so if you throw your challenge at the wrong time and then later on something happens, you're screwed. So you got to be very smart. Like, choose your challenges wisely.
Can you
And this
keep
is
them all
something
till
we're testing.
Sunday?
What's that?
Can you keep them all till Sunday?
No,
Can you
you
be
just
like,
get
I
one a
didn't use
day.
Fridays? Okay. You can't
Yeah.
like stockpile them.
I mean, but God forbid you need to use like one challenge every workout. Like, hopefully our judges are doing their job.
Yeah. Yeah. Are the judges are all are the judges volunteers? Are they like, how's that working?
Yeah, so Andrew's the head judge, and then we have 8 volunteer judges, um, 3 or 4 of which have like uh, CrossFit licensed event experience judging, a few that are competitors, and a few that are, say, like quote unquote just volunteers. But everybody's
Yeah, yeah.
going through the judging course that CrossFit has laid out, um, and we're having like weekly calls.
Okay.
Like reviewing these workouts, we're reviewing the penalties. This is a huge deal to me, and so like I'm trying to do it as good as possible. It's very tough though. All these volunteers, like you can't. It's not a full time job for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it is. It's tricky. It is
So I'm
tricky.
like corralling different teams each week for a 1 hour call, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I don't know if you committed to like weekly
As well
calls.
though, apart from the odd psycho, every judge that is doing it, like there's maybe like 1 in 1,000 who's like, fucking power trip. They're like, this is my moment to treat people like shit. But
Yeah,
like by and large, they all want to do it and they all want to do it really well. And they all want to do it because they love the sport and they all want to do it because they want to see the sport grow and maybe it might lead to opportunities and etc. etc. So yeah, it's hard. And it's always hard when you hear like criticism of judges and you hear like, oh, we should be doing this and they should be doing that and that guy's a fucking idiot and that girl should have done this and whatever. And it's kind of like, man, they're volunteers. Like, it's like they did it for a pair of shoes or they did it because they happened to have a free weekend and maybe they left their kids for the weekend to go and do it. So it is always hard when you hear the criticism, I think.
dude, we're in a
um
tough industry. I mean, like the CrossFit,
If
like,
they're paid, fucking have at it. Like if
yeah,
they're being paid like $500 a day to do, fucking like, lampoon them. Don't give a fuck. But like it's like, oh, they're doing it for a pair of nobles, or they're doing it for
yeah,
a pair of like whatever. It's kind of like, right, okay, come on, like, you can kind of go. They did it for a fucking sandwich at lunchtime. Like it's like food and drinks included. It's like you got a can of Monster and a chicken sandwich with like 5 grams of chicken in it.
yeah. For
Um,
what it's worth, our volunteers get LSKD outfit, a pair of Reebok shoes, and they get $40 worth of a local meal prep company. So we
oh, that's cool.
tried to cater to them as much as possible. My goal
And
is, I was thinking a lot about this year. My goal is next year to pay every volunteer, um, and
something
well,
anyway.
that wouldn't
Yeah.
make them a volunteer technically, but um, something like $100 for the
Don't
weekend.
tell them that till after they volunteer. So they
Yeah,
volunteer and they say, "You're no longer volunteers. You're being paid."
yeah.
Um, I'm not surprised to see LSKD getting involved. They're so good. Like, geez, they fucking love community. Um, right. You've got a good list of athletes coming. Um, I'm curious with those. So James Sprague is coming. You've obviously got some of the underdogs people that are based in Vegas. It's obviously a no-brainer if they want to be involved to do it. Athletes that are coming from out of town, how does that work? Because obviously you're the event organizer, and the bigger the athlete that comes, the better it is for the competition, because it's like extra attention, extra eyes, and extra like gravitas or whatever. Are you like, hey, come to Vegas and you can enter this competition and maybe win something? Or are you like, hey, let me bring you to Vegas and you can enter this competition and maybe win something? Like, how does that work? Because obviously you're treading a fine line of like, we'll just say like Alex Gazan is based in Vegas. So is someone that's coming from far away like getting a better deal because they're coming from, do you know what I mean? Like how
Yeah.
do you kind of balance that?
It's a great question. So every athlete is being paid to participate in this competition, um, and their compensation is based on a few things. One, their distance from the location. Even though even the Vegas athletes are getting compensated to compete, I think it's important for an invitational.
Hmm.
Um, and depending on where they live and their respective standing in the CrossFit competitive space, right? Are they a games athlete? Are they a semifinal level athlete? Are they
Hmm.
a last chance qualifier? How
Pedigree.
many times? So, grant there's not an algorithm. It's not like someone's getting $897.12 because of their quarterfinal performance, and then somebody else is getting $512.72. There's something weird, I
Yeah.
didn't run the data and create an algorithm. Um, but it is more or less like, okay, if they're coming from Florida, they're going to get a couple $100 more than if they're sitting in Vegas.
Yeah.
If they were from the games versus from semifinals, they're going to get potentially a couple $100 more. And part of the invite was, I'd like you to come out here and compete, but I'd also like you to promote the event leading up to the
Yeah. Yeah.
competition. Hopefully, it goes without saying. I mean, you look at every athlete that's doing the Rogue Invitational. Rogue isn't paying them to promote Rogue Invitational. They don't need their help, but they're still doing it. So I
Yeah.
assumed all these athletes would promote, but I wanted to make it clear, like I could use your help in promoting this event. So I'm going to pay you to come out here, but I'm also going to ask you to promote the event leading up to the
Yeah.
competition to build more awareness and let people know you'll be out here so they can buy tickets and watch you, or let people know that they can compete online against you.
Yeah. That's fair. Um, I asked you a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to do this news thing, which just really fucking isn't taking off. But anyway, I'll keep doing it because it's fun. Where I
But yeah,
share like news from the community, and like so far it's kind of all competition results, and there's a couple of charity things came up. But it's mostly just competition results. And I reached out to you. It's the first time I was doing it, and I was like, oh, I'm doing it. Would you kind of include Zelos in it? And you said, yeah, no problem. And I recorded it and I made the video and I put it up. And I got a message a little while later um, saying that, kind of bringing into question the fact that I was giving you a platform to talk about your competition, and that there's been issues around your competition with image rights and with like these like cease and desist, like, what do you call them? Not
it's a
lawsuits, I don't know, whatever.
cease and desist. That's what you call it.
Orders, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Cease and desist orders about using pictures and not having permission and that kind of stuff. And anytime I get a message about anything, I always just say, okay, like, if someone tells me like that person did this, that, and the other, I'm just like, oh, that sounds really bad, because like I don't have all the information, and like with the best will and best intention in the world, that person could be telling me the full truth, but if I don't know that it's the truth, or if I haven't like witnessed it myself, I'm not going to say, yeah, you're right, that girl's a fucking asshole or whatever. I'll just say, I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. Like, that sounds really bad. Like, nobody should feel the way that you're feeling now, and hopefully it gets resolved or whatever. So that's kind of the line I went with. um, like, which kind of didn't seem good enough. Like, I kind of got the impression that, like, no, like, I was like, well, look, I don't know both sides of
You don't
this.
understand.
But it was like, no, but there's only one side of it. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's not true, because there's always fucking two sides to everything. But basically, it amounted to you using pictures and videos, I think, on the website, on the Zelos Games website, and I assume the Instagram as well, that were like the rights didn't belong to you, that they belonged to the person who had taken the images in the first place. And this is like the reason I brought it up with you is because I feel like it's a contentious subject in general. Like a lot of the times when I release an episode, I just go to the athletes or coaches or personalities page or whatever. I just scroll down till I see, oh, that's a nice picture, and I screenshot it and I crop it down and I put it into like an artwork, and I put it out, and like with the best intention of the world, like 7 or 8 times out of 10, I remember to take note of who took the picture and to tag that person or say like photographed by and the person, because I feel like that's just there's kind of no law about it when it's on Instagram. It's kind of public domain, so it's like but I feel like I'm ticking a box by giving credit where it's due and stuff. Um, but it is a bit of a minefield, and I feel like the more professionalized the sport gets, the more that this is going to crop up where people feel duped or they feel hard done by, or and there's a constant talk, and it's something that I believe in, where you kind of put a value on your time and you say like, well, this is the work that I do and this is how much it costs, and here's why it costs that much, because there's a coffee shop in Dublin, and it's really good. It's expensive, but it's really good. And the guy says like, you're not paying for the 3 minutes it takes me to make that coffee. You're paying for the 15 years that I've been traveling the world learning how to do it. And like it's my right to do this now. So you're kind of in that kind of stage where videographers, photographers, MCs, whatever, like are involved in that kind of um, promotional or off competition floor or content creation kind of stuff. They are entitled to put a value of like a monetary value on their time, whatever they see fit, because they're the ones that are putting in the time. But then you also have the flip side of that, where you're saying you made a loss last year. I know, like, it's been common knowledge that the CrossFit Games is fucking hemorrhaging money for years. That's why they brought out this whole semi-final thing, the sanctional thing. They've changed again this year because the semi-finals lost too much money last year. So now you have this thing where competitions are like, man, we're not making money. Like it's fine for Dubai, who can just like fuck a bag of money at it and be like, who cares? It's like, we're real rich. It doesn't matter. We don't need spectators. We don't need anything. Then you have people like Madrid CrossFit Championship who are like, we don't have spectators here. We're in trouble. Like so they didn't do their live stream to kind of allow that to blossom, I guess. But competitions are expensive. They're difficult to run. They're like, I kind of feel like people, like a lot of people will you to fail. Like they kind of don't want it to succeed. And there are plenty that do want to succeed, don't get me wrong. But when you have all that kind of stuff going on, you're like, fuck, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to like do this the way I want to do it? And then you get a price for something that you're maybe expecting, because it's a new thing, because you've made it clear, like, we didn't make money last year, we're not in a good place, or, this is where it's a leap of faith again this year. And then you see a number and you're like, what? Like that, then I just can't do it. So there's the two sides there, where the person values what they're doing and they have like, this is my monetary value on it, take it or leave it. Obviously not expecting you to say leave it. And then you have the competition director or the event organizer or the Instagram page or the company or whatever, who says, well, hey, we can't afford like what you're asking us to do here, so we really have to leave it. And you got these two sides. Like, is that essentially what we're talking about here, that there was a value put on something and the value couldn't be met?
Um, yes and no. I think I'll back up a little bit just to the give a little context to the story without naming names. But had a buddy who I met, ironically, met this guy last year at Rogue because he was shooting for free a couple of the athletes that were competing. He was trying to make a name for himself in the space, which is funny because like now there's this like media militia who's kind of like against doing things for free, which a handful of them got their start by doing stuff for free. But anyway, so met this kid who's doing stuff for free. He really loved the Zelos games, and so we became acquaintances that elevated to friends, and then stayed in touch. And I'd like to think that we were real friends. We shared things with each other. Going into this year, obviously hosting the Zelos games, it was sort of assumed this guy would be the media director. We had chatted on and off about the Zelos games leading up to it. He was, a large part of like the encouragement and inspiration I needed to do it again this year. Like he deserves the credit for that. He was supportive of the idea. And then of course, like this, this media, this message around like getting paid for doing what their work in the media space. First of all, I'm supportive of anybody in any trade getting paid what you're worth. Um, but like around the time of the games was like when this messaging in the media space started circulating around, like if you're doing stuff for free, you're making the people that are charging look bad. If you're doing stuff for cheap, you're making the people that are charging look bad. And so kind of, I'm not a part of those conversations. I don't professionally do video or photography. Um, so that that became like a message, and sort of after that message, which is a righteous message, I support the message. This guy reaches out to me and he's like, "Hey man, we should talk about the costs for covering the Zelos games." And I said, "Sure, send me a proposal." And I got this ridiculous proposal, um, just an outrageous price to cover a competition that we had been talking about for years, from someone who has done half of his work for free leading up to where we're at now, over the trajectory of his career in this space, which is a year long. And so I literally and politely declined the proposal. I even have like emails to prove it for what it's worth. And it's one of those complicated things of trying to do business with friends, right? And that's a whole different topic of conversation in and of itself. But I said, hey, I respect and appreciate that this is your new rate. It should be. You're really good at what you do. I just personally can't afford this rate. Um, One of his arguments was like Zelos Games is a for-profit competition, so he has to charge me what he charges for-profit companies. And I'm like, well, I'm not Noble, and just because a company registers as a for-profit does not mean they're making profit, right? Like I might
Yeah.
as well be a non-profit for now. So, anyways, I said, hey, I don't,
You're a four loss competition.
yeah,
Or
like
like
what?
last year was a four loss.
So anyway,
I'm
so
in
I,
it to lose money, baby.
respectfully declined this proposal. And there's even like in my email like, hey, let's try to like move past this so we can be friends. It's just an invoice. It's just a job. That wasn't enough. Apparently, I get a text like, hey, you need to take down anything I've ever given you, or you have to pay me for it. And it was like, well, he's a young guy, and like I've been around a long time in the business space. I've been managing and running businesses for 15 years. And so it's like, you've given me exclusive. What I said is, you've given me exclusive access to this content. And what I mean by that is, I have an email that legibly reads, "Hey, you can use this content for the Zelos games," with a link to a Google Drive with a bunch of content. And in the court of law, that is explicit um, access or explicit permission to use content without a price tag. And so, like, if we were to actually go to court, like, I would win. And fortunately, that'll never, like, we're not going to do that. But I was like, first of all, you're being a dick. Like, in my head, I didn't say this, but I just said, send me a cease and desist then. Like, if we're going to not be friends anymore because I didn't hire you for an event and now you're butthurt and now you're going to send me, like, take all my content down or pay me, like, that's not what humans do. Like, I don't, I was like, what? This isn't how we treat people. So sue me, And so he emails me a cease and
So
desist.
he
I'm like,
did.
well, so the joke is, at least the joke for me is like, you're not an attorney. You don't send me a cease and desist, bro. Like, you hire someone to do that. Like, and so I said that. I said, dude, I saw it, but until you like acquire representation, like legal representation, then please stop messaging me. Like, this is getting out of hand. And so from there, of course, he reaches out to some people, including yourself, and talks badly about me. And it's very unfortunate because it's super immature. And like, I'm 32 years old, like, I don't want to be a part of some rumor mill, especially, I wouldn't say it's a sacrifice. Like, I choose to do what I do, but I try to do a lot,
Yeah.
like, uh, started the Zelos games as a competition to create more earning potential for athletes. Like, but at the same time, he's creating a message that I don't pay media people for content. It's like, what? Where's the
Yeah.
case study here? Um,
Yeah, but
like,
you
where's
see,
the
the
data?
thing about it is, and even like, say, like I asked you, I DM'd you, and I asked like what the fuck's going on with media? Like, is there a problem there? Like, what's going on? And you kind of like gave me the highlights of your side of the story. And I think like I don't have the hand, but I'm fairly sure I reacted the same way of like, that's really unfortunate that that happened. Like, that sounds tough. Because again, I was hearing his side of it, and then I was hearing your side of it. And it's kind of like, I mean, it could be somewhere in the middle. One of you could be totally right, the other one could be totally wrong. What the fuck do I know? I wasn't there. Like, it's you can't. But not everyone, and I'm not holding myself up as some like fucking, you know, I don't know, like counselor or like someone who really understands how people take and shit. But like, not everyone will react that way. A lot of people will get a message about that and say like, "Oh, that fucking asshole," and like, blackballed, or like, "Oh, that dick, like ruined," like, "Oh, well, cancelled. That not interested in that anymore. Fuck Zelos Games. I'm not getting involved in that." Like, it's hard because, and I understand, like you say, I understand where he's coming from. That it's like, I need to earn money, and it is interesting when you hear, and I have seen that same conversation kind of going on of, if you're undercharging, or if you're doing it for free, and it's like, well, where do you get your start then? It's like that thing of where I remember when I was growing up, you went to apply for jobs, and every job said experience required. And it's like, if I need experience for every fucking job I go for, how the
It's
fuck do
the
I get a
egg and the
job if I
chicken.
can't ever get experience anywhere?
Yeah, it's the egg
Um,
and the chicken. And
yeah,
like,
like it's like, everyone has to start somewhere. So I think, just to tell people, it's farcical to tell people like, don't work for free because it ruins it for me. It's like, well, fuck you, you did it. Like, everyone has to start somewhere. Like, I did this for free.
yeah,
Like, it's, you can't expect just to be like, hey, I'm a photographer, and now I've only ever actually taken pictures in my own gym, for like my friend, but can I have like $5,000 to it doesn't work like that. Like,
yeah,
you
you got to earn
can't,
your
you have to
stripes
prove yourself. And the way
in
that people
every
prove
industry, though,
themselves,
not just
yeah,
media. Like,
but the way
or
the
you
way
can
you
go get
prove
a
yourself
degree.
now is
You can
Instagram,
get a
or like
degree,
that.
and
Yeah. But like nowadays, in this space, the way you do it is like Instagram, TikTok, like YouTube, like that. That's the way you prove yourself, because that's where the eyes are. That's, well, not so much TikTok, but that's where the eyes are. As I've discovered, TikTok is, oh my god, it's so frustrating. But you have this obligation to have a body of work. But then, if you can only ever get that body of work by either photographing like nobodies, no offense to them, but like people who won't reshare, or whose reshare isn't worth the reshare, like, you need these big names. Like, that's how people get noticed. That's how I found half the photographers and videographers that I follow, is because I was looking for a picture and I saw it on an athlete's page, or I saw an athlete share something and I was like, fuck, that's good. Um, like, those opportunities, you don't just open your door one morning and Tia Toomey standing outside it being like, "Hey, I heard you take pictures."
yeah,
Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, Josie, he started by emailing Tia and Shane and being like, "Can I follow you guys around when you're in Europe?" He didn't say, "Oh, can I follow you guys around when you're in Europe and I'm going to charge you 20 grand?" Like, it doesn't work like that.
yeah, and
Um,
that's how you got to start.
yeah,
I think it's an interesting conversation to have, and like, it's the irony is that I'm like painted as a bad guy, at least for like a week of my life, that I dealt with these weird, I don't know, kickback. Um, but I say all that to say, like, one, for the most part, a couple things in response to this. I think there's three sides to every story. There's one person's, there's the others, and then there's the truth. And the truth is, I could have been less stubborn when I got that text, and I could have just changed out the content and stopped
yeah,
using it. But that aside, because I don't think a lot about this person or that situation very much at all. I mean, I don't have a lot of mental capacity to spend my time on somebody spreading rumors that I use their content. I do think it's important to establish some type of consistency in this space, though, because we are in the wild, wild west. And so, like, what I mean by that is, I had a conversation with this exact guy early on in his like photography, whatever career, and I made an example of when I was a personal trainer. Like, when I first started as a trainer, I would train anybody for any amount of money. You want to pay me $20, half hour, an hour, whatever. I want to train you. I want to learn, and I want to make a living. It's what I want to do professionally. I did it for so long. By the time I quit training, I was $150 an hour for personal training. And um, what I told him is that I charged a premium rate. Like, the average rate in the city that I was in was like $75 an hour for training. And I'm charging double, but I'm charging double for a reason, because one, I'm very confident in my expertise, but two, if I make this rate for everybody that can afford me, then I can choose to charge whatever rate I want for the people that genuinely can't afford me. And if I got into this business to actually help people, the people that usually need the most help can't afford it in general, whether it's $30 an hour or 150. So 90% of my clients were paying a premium rate because these are wealthy people that can afford it. So I can train my dad for free. And so I can train a couple local, you know, people that I know that have some weight to lose or some, um, deficiencies from injuries or whatever. And so it allowed me to do that. So I'm training 35 hours of my week for 150 bucks an hour. 5 hours of my week are free. And I'm not pissed at these free people. I'm very thankful for all the other people paying me so I can choose to train these people for free. And that's what I said to him. I said, you're going to have people in your career that need your help. Like, hey, I'm hosting this, not using myself as an example. Let's say it's somebody else. Hosting this event, I could really use media, but I can't afford it. And then he can say, well, we're friends. I got you. Because I charge everyone else that's highly profitable and significantly successful. I charge them my normal rates so I can afford to do pro bono work. It's just like attorneys. Attorneys have to do like X amount of pro bono work. They don't have to, but so that's a message there for any media people. Charge what you're worth for 90% of people so you can afford to give people breaks when and if they ever need it. Especially like your friend's getting married and he's broke. What are you gonna be, an asshole and be like $1,000 a day, bruh? Like, no, like I got you. We're best friends. I'll even do it for free because everyone else is paying me what I'm worth. Does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah, yeah, it does.
So that's one message that I have for that industry. Another is Gary Vaynerchuk, probably like the biggest marketing guru that exists, has a book called, I think it's like Jab, 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 Right Hook, something like that. And in order to make a difference in the world, number one, you need to serve. Like whatever you do has to be rooted in serving. Um, but what he talks about it is if you want to be recognized in any space, you need to just like in boxing, you jab, 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 jab. You wait for your opportunity and you throw the right hook. You knock the guy out, you win the fight, whatever. Right? So like jab, jab, jab. And what that means is like early on you start doing photo video. Your jabs are, hey Tia and Shane, do you mind if I follow you around in Europe and just cover content? If you love it, share it. If you don't, let me know. That's a jab. You jab, you jab, you jab. Like so there's levels to it. There's a process. And so I think for anybody at the top charging 5 grand a day for media because you've been doing it forever, to judge someone at the bottom of the totem pole per se, to say, man, you're making us look bad by charging $100 a day. One, stay in your lane because like you don't know what that person's life is like or what their goals are. But two, maybe they're jabbing right now. You know what I mean? Maybe they don't have the stamina or the confidence to go for the right hook that you're doing. So I have a lot of feelings about it. My bottom line is that people should get paid what they're worth, whether they're a trainer, an attorney, a media person, a CrossFit athlete, a podcaster. But I do think there's a process to establishing that. And despite what you believe, empathy and self awareness is important. That's
Yeah.
how I feel about this whole situation.
Like, but like, and it's funny because there is like, I was kind of talking to you about it beforehand, but I've had conversations with different people who want to support the show, and they're like, "Well, how much do you want?" And you're in that kind of thing where it's like, I don't know, like I don't know what, like, and then you're nearly at the stage, like I know I'm nearly at the stage, or was nearly at the stage where I'd be like, maybe I should message like someone who I think is a peer and ask them what they charge, or maybe I should message because I don't understand how this works, and I don't want to say a number and then be like, "What? Get the fuck out of here!" Or say a number and then be like, "Oh, deal. We thought you were going to ask for way more," or like, you sucker. And like I think that the two people that kind of saved me from it were like Patrick Cummings, who he's like the co-host of Chasing Excellence, and he's business, he's launched so much stuff and advised so many people, and he's just a genius with it. But I remember talking to him about a year and a half ago, and he was like, it doesn't matter. Like, like if LSKD come to you and they say, hey, we want to sponsor your podcast, we want to help you with your podcast, how much do you want? And I say like, oh, like $200. And then they say like, no. Then it's like, okay, well, what's the downside there? Like someone else will come, or they'll come back, or something different will happen. Like they're not taking money out of your pocket, they're just not putting it into it. And that was kind of liberating, where I was like, oh fuck, he's right. Like it actually doesn't, like, I'm not losing money. It's money I don't have. And it's stopping me upgrading my laptop or whatever. It's not stopping me paying my mortgage. And then Ben from Rad like asked me he wanted to do the same thing. He was like, how can I get involved? And I was like, oh, I mean, you could sponsor like a series. You could do like, 3 or 4 episodes. That'd be pretty cool. Like, cause it'd be nice. His company was just starting, They had just launched at Wadapalooza when we had the conversation, and he was like, I was thinking like I could have maybe at the time, at the time I could have maybe helped him a little bit. Now it's like fucking really swung the other way. Um, but like
They've done well.
I was like, oh, I could do like a series or something, and he was like, oh, like what are your rates? And I was like, I don't really know. And then we were kind of friends, and it was kind of more awkward. And he was like, "Yeah, why are you making this so difficult?" Like thankfully we were on like a FaceTime call. If this was email, I would have died.
Yeah.
Because I would have attributed tone to everything. But in the FaceTime, he was like, like, man, why are you making this so awkward? Like you're ruining like what's supposed to be an easy like conversation. You're making it really difficult because you won't just put a fucking value on your time. And I kind of said, like, oh, between this and this. And he was like, well, which is it? Like the low one or the high one? And he was like, there's a big gap between those two numbers. And he was like, I want to do a year. And I was like, oh shit, okay. And I was like, oh, between this and this. And he was like, well, which is it? And I was like, I don't know. The small one, neither of them. Less. I don't know. Like, is it too high? Is it too low? I don't know. And he was like, okay, get rid of the first number, get rid of the hyphen that separates them, and just go with the bigger number. And I'm actually going to go higher than that bigger number. And that should be your new number from now on. And that should be how you value your time. So like when people ask me like, "Oh, why do you like Rad?" Obviously, I like their shoes and shit. Man, Ben is like he's just fucking good. Like
Good
he's
people.
really good, really
Yeah.
good. So yeah, I think I empathize with a lot of what you're saying, and it's obviously frustrating for the person on the other end because they do have a value on their time and they do have they have that. But as you say, I think there's nuance to it, and you can't just say like this is the value of my time, full stop. I had it with Fitter. Fitter said, "Look, we can't justify spending money on sponsoring a podcast. We can do this though. Like we can give you this amount." And I was like, fuck it, I like you. Yeah, let's do it. Like I'd be proud to be associated with your brand, regardless of what I'm getting for it. Like this is free money for me, so let's go for it. And it's working out because you're bringing me to Wadapalooza. So that that was a major win. Um, okay, we'll move on. I think we've both said everything we need to say there.
Yeah, we're good there.
Um, okay, I buy a spectator ticket. I'm going to Vegas. What can I expect? I'm not really, but hypothetically, what could a hypothetical spectator expect?
Oh, thanks for getting my hopes up, Peter. Yeah, so a 2-day ticket's $50. You get a free coffee from Paper Street Coffee Company. You get a
Excellent, good
free,
fucking coffee.
yeah, man, Gabe, Paper Street, solid people, solid coffee. Um, you get a free thing of thumb tape from Grip Tight. It's always a tongue twister for me, but Grip Tight thumb tape.
Yeah,
They'll be live at the event. Love those guys, big supporters of what we're doing. And then you get a free sample from Podium. Podium will be there as well.
cool.
In addition to that, you get to watch 12 men and 12 women compete in 3 heats of 4, 2 times each day. So 2 workouts each day. Some of the most well known, some of the highest level athletes outside of maybe just outside of the games for many of them. And there is food trucks. We got like a taco food truck and a hibachi food truck. Handpicked these myself.
Is
Um,
hibachi the thing? Is that the thing where they put the steam in the onion, or they flip the onion
yeah,
into their hat? Okay,
yeah. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know if they'll be able to do that in a food truck, but we'll see.
they just hit the
Um,
roof with it.
just throwing fire at people and stuff.
Yeah.
Eggs and things. And then yeah, so 2 workouts each day. There's going to be a spectator workout both days. Obviously, limited space at each one, but $50 gets you those free items. Gets you a show. It gets you a spectator workout. Hang out with people from all over Vegas, all over the country, mainly. See some of your favorite athletes compete. Be a part of the live broadcast. I know we're going to be doing on the first day after the second workout. We're going to give some spectators an opportunity to do workout number 2 live
Okay.
and be judged live. So if they plan on submitting their score, then they can sign up and do like
Oh,
we're going
that's
to do.
cool.
Yeah, 2 heats of 8 people. The second workout's announced already. It's a sort of a sprint um, couplet. It's not really a couplet, technically a triplet, but 5, 7, 9 power clean burpee over the bar, thruster burpee over the bar facing burpee, 5, 7, 9. So it's like anywhere from 3 to 7 minute long workout. So we're going to have a couple heats and let people sign up to do that live, and they'll get judged live. They can film themselves, submit that to the Zelos Games online. So that's the live event. Super stoked on it. Like I mentioned earlier, there's an after party at the Marquee Sunday night. Um, should be a really, really good time. We'll have Podium, LSKD, uh, Paper Street Coffee Company, Grip Tight Tape, on-site, like athletes will have on-site PT through a company called Project Wellness, which is a PT company out here in Las Vegas.
That's
Food
cool.
trucks, games out back, things like that.
When does registration close?
Registration to compete in the event closes November 15th at noon. That's when the first workout is due.
Okay.
Um, you can start submitting your workouts November 11th at noon.
Okay.
But the competition is from November 11th to November 21st. We have 10 divisions: elite, which pays out just over 30,000 to the online competitors. We have the RX division, and then we have the 8 age group divisions
Okay.
that all have significant top 3 prizes. All the information's on the registration page, and much of it is on the Instagram as well.
And tickets through the same. So what is it? The ZelosGames.com. Is it for both tickets and entry?
So ZelosGames.com will lead you to the right links to go to Competition Corner to
Okay.
sign up for the competition, and it'll lead you to like our merch/ticket page to order a
Okay.
ticket online.
That's cool.
But it's all like, check out the website. Let me know what you think of the website. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I think any of the images should be taken down. Um, listen, thanks. Thanks for coming back on. It's been great to catch up with you. I hope to bump into you in Miami. It'd be great. If we're both there at the same time. And best of luck with it. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. I'm looking forward to seeing what. Hopefully, it comes back in another bigger, better iteration again, and keeps coming back and keeps coming back. Because I think the intent is great, and the way you're going about it is different and intelligent. So best of luck with everything, and yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Peter. This is always fun. I appreciate you having me on and giving me a chance to talk a little bit more about the Zelos game. So I will see you in Wadapalooza. Can't wait, bro.